Homelessness is worsening over time.
If you don't have a home, you really can't focus on other parts of your life.
Our children are our future because we are the present.
You're one really bad day away from being homeless.
Folks that you walk past on the street, they're somebody's family member.
Housing, education, people. Those are game changers. We have the money, the intellect, the passion. We can do this.
Hi, my name is Hannon, and I'm the host of The Bells I Hear, an audio and video podcast that aims to raise awareness about the homelessness crisis in New York City and the complexity surrounding the issue. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Follow us on social media at The Bells I Hear, and email us your stories and questions at thebellsihear@mentorapromise.org. Check out the description of this podcast or video for more details. And now on with the show.
Today we have Dr. Jeremy Kohomban joining us. He is a leading advocate for family support measures to prevent family and child separation. He is the president and CEO of Children's Village, as well as president of Harlem, Dowling, a nonprofit dedicated to equipping children with the proper tools to be self-serving. Hi, Dr. Kohomban. It is a pleasure to have you on our podcast today.
It's great to be with you. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'd love for you to just tell us a little bit more, or just tell us about your journey into this field of work.
It was quite by accident. I volunteered to work with children while I was in college, and it kind of got me excited. I was surprised that there were so many children in government custody. It was new to me. I'm a first-generation immigrant in Kansas. I didn't understand the system. And what I didn't understand most was why the children that I met did not have as much contact with their family. And that seemed kind of strange to me. When I came to New York to do graduate studies with a plan to be a neuropsychologist, I found out very quickly that office work was not what got me most excited. So I went back and said, what did I enjoy? And I remembered that I really enjoyed working with those young people while I was in college. So that brought me into this work. And 25 years later, here I am enjoying it to my fullest.
That's really beautiful. It sounded like that spark was lit, when you were in college a lot, when you were much younger. I guess what has sort of kept you working with children, rather than, going into a different field of work or pursuing, something else? What has made you stay?
My original plan was to be a military officer. I was in ROTC. I was going to be a neuropsychologist. So I had tried a couple other things along the way. I think my mom has been a tremendous inspiration in my life. She dedicated her entire life to helping people. And as I got into my early 20s, I became a little more like her than I thought I would be. And to this day, she's still alive. She inspires me. And what inspires me every day is the young people that I meet, because they're so resilient. It's incredible, their levels of resilience. And this morning, I was at our school meeting them as they came in. And I tell anyone that I meet that the best part of my day is meeting our young people coming to school. Everything after that is less important than those 30 minutes that I spent with them.
Would you mind telling us just a little bit more about the work that, your organizations do, like Children's Village and Harlem Dowling?
Children's Village and Harlem Dowling are two of the oldest organizations in the United States, both founded in the early 1800s. A tremendous history, complicated history. On the Children's Village side, we were not always on the right side of history. Looking back, we worked with our first 100 years was mostly with immigrant children that were coming into New York City and getting arrested and being sent into residential care. Harlem Dowling is the successor organization of the Colored Orphan Asylum, this incredible organization that was founded and situated at 44th and 5th Avenue. And in 1863, during the first race riots of New York, called the draft riots, that building was burnt to the ground because all the children in that building, well over 200 of them, were kids of color. So it was the only organization in 1863 that served exclusively children of color. The building was burnt to the ground and never allowed to rebuild.
Wow.
And in 2016, we managed to get the city to keep its promise, and we rebuilt the organization at 127th Street and Adam Clayton Powell. So if you come into our building, you'll see some of the history there. But most people don't know this story, that
Yeah.
the colored orphanage was on one of the most valued pieces of property in the United States today, 44th and 5th Avenue. So the two organizations have an incredible history, deeply committed to doing the right thing and helping kids and families.
Yeah, it's kind of symbolic, it being kind of rebuilt in that same space, sort of like continuing its legacy. So, are there any success stories within either organization that, has really stood out to you during your time there?
Thousands. All these pictures behind me are success stories. Young people that, exited the system, got a college degree, got technical training, got a master's, want to be attorneys. One is a pilot, now flying for Frontier. Look, our young people are incredibly capable.
Hmm.
They love their families. Their lives are not easy. There are lots of reasons for the struggles that they face. But they want the same things that you and I want.
Yeah.
They want love, they want belonging, and they want success. And when you help them get on that path and stay on that path, they surprise us all.
Yeah, it sounds like they just need like the right guidance or sort of opportunities or just right person rooting for them because
People.
they're the right people.
People. Not systems, right? The systems that have been imposed on them are incredibly burdensome. They're ineffective. They rarely push them to excellence. Most of our systems are comfortable with mediocrity. But our young people, when the expectations are high and the support is consistent, they always rise above the expectations that we set.
Obviously, there are success stories based on, your beautiful shelf. So what, I guess, makes you guys and your approach stand out from, other organizations that are tackling the exact same issue?
Look, there are lots of great organizations doing good work. No question about that. So I don't want to get into comparisons. But what I can tell you is this. We don't believe that the lack of money is a problem. We believe that how we spend money is a problem. And we also believe that family, broadly defined as one person that is committed to you, that's got your back, is the key to success. The loneliest children in our system struggle to succeed and often find success extremely difficult because they're lonely and they don't know who is there to support them. It is hard to be alone. Our job is to create family. Again, broadly defined, just one person that loves you, one person that sticks by you, one person that pushes you to be more, one person that demands more of you than what the world demands of you. You and I are here today because we had people like that in our lives. In my case, it was my mother that expected more of me than even I wanted to give. And that was a game changer, and that's true to all of us. We have way too many kids in our system that are being told that the best they can be is a security guard, that the best they can be is a plumber's assistant, that the best they can be is maybe get some benefits and, find a way to live. That's not good enough. Our young people need people pushing them forward.
100% agree. Um, and so recently, the New York Times reported that 146,000 public school students in New York City have like experienced homelessness during the 2023 to 2024 school year, which is a 23% increase from the previous year. Given, the work that you're doing with Children's Village, with families and shelters, how do you think, we can better support these students academically, emotionally, to help them kind of thrive?
It's embarrassing that in a city as powerful, as wealthy, filled with people that care, that we have so many people and so many young people and children in shelters. Look, New York City for long has committed to a shelter strategy than a home strategy. Shelters are not homes. You don't build peer groups and relationships and lifelong friendships in shelters. You build lifelong relationships and peer groups and support when you live in community, right, in neighborhoods. And for way too long, we have leaned on a shelter strategy because it's easy to build shelters and it's easy to keep people in mediocrity. And to me, shelters are mediocrity. We should not continue to commit to a shelter strategy. We absolutely can build homes, and you probably have seen our website or our social media. We build homes in desirable neighborhoods so that our people can live in peace and not worry about their children. The number one predictor in the United States of second-generation success is where you live and where your children go to school. Families, including mine and maybe yours, make tremendous sacrifices to live in places where their children are safe and the schools are good. And you can see what it does in those communities, right? But when we fill our segregated and burdened communities with more and more shelters and force people to live there, we are not just failing those families, we are absolutely failing the second generation. And there's no reason why we can't build homes. And the city of yes, that the council and the mayor have promoted, is probably the first best opportunity we have seen in 30 years, maybe more, because it requires that all communities, not just our most burdened communities that often get dumped with everything, that all communities do a little more to create housing and affordable housing. That's what it takes, all of us working together.
So you believe a housing first approach rather than, adhering to a shelter system can be, very beneficial for students and can help, address the crisis? Is that right?
We all do well in communities. Think about all the friends that you and I have today. I bet you that some of them are friends we made during high school. But when you get moved around from shelter to shelter, it is very difficult to maintain relationships or even attend the same school. Would we want our families in shelters? And it's not just housing. It is housing in desirable neighborhoods, because where you live and where your children go to school matters. And for too long, we have only invested in burdening our most burdened communities, which are also racially segregated, with housing. Well over 85% of the affordable housing built across the United States, certainly in New York City, gets built in those most burdened communities. And City of Yes is the first time we've seen a willingness to break from that strategy.
Could you explain a little bit more to our viewers what City of Yes is?
I'm not an expert on City of Yes, but I'll give you the very condensed version. It basically asks each one of our communities in New York City to do a little bit more of affordable housing, to not lean on the NIMBYism, not in my backyard. strategy of the past, but to lean into saying, hey, look, you know, we'd like a little, some residential on some of our commercial corridors, right? There's no reason why you can't have commercial below, like in the building that we built in Inwood. We have the New York Public Library, we have the community center, we have the preschool. We have all these beautiful commercial spaces on the ground level and 175 deeply affordable apartments in the tower. It also allows some families to look at adding, if you have a single family home and you have a garage, maybe you can add an apartment on top of the garage. So it loosens the regulation a little bit, not enough, but a little bit, to give communities and families the option to maybe add on to their own homes, but to also allow for more affordable development of up to, I think, 20% in their own communities.
You are a leading national advocate for reforms to the child welfare system that prioritizes the needs of families and preventative services over the use of residential care. So in your view, like, what are the most urgent reforms needed today?
We need to continue to push the residential care system. We've done a good job in New York, but nationally it hasn't changed as much. What we need is a system where there's efficacious, meaning evidence-based treatment, right? When a young person is in crisis, when the family needs help, you need a residential system that provides real treatment, that is time limited, and then those services need to shift to the community and wrap itself around the family. That's what we want, but we still have a residential care system that is way too large across the United States. New York City has done an amazing job of reducing numbers. We have less children in residential today, probably under 1,000, than we ever had before in the city. The organizations like Children's Village get credit for doing that. So reduce the residential system and continue to invest in treatment and move the money to the community. The second is we need to do more for our foster parents. Our foster parents are amazing. Without them, we'll have many more kids languishing in residential care, in group homes. We don't need that. We need our foster parents to get all the support they need, because they not only open their doors to a child or a young person, they also open their hearts to our young people. So they're a game changer. 3, housing for young people that are aging out of foster care and juvenile justice continues to be a real challenge. And we have prioritized this idea of supportive housing over integrated housing in the community. We really want our young people to live in safer neighborhoods, right? Right now, way too many of them are being put into the same neighborhoods that are stressed, overburdened, and in some ways a threat to their safety. You know, they want to be elsewhere. They want to be safe. They want to be able to go to school at night and come home, work a job at night and come home safely. And so they're asking us to do more around housing. Those are certainly 3 key priorities for us and for the nation when it comes to child welfare and juvenile justice.
Could you describe the difference between supportive and integrated housing?
There are young people that need supportive housing, meaning they're not ready at 18, 19, or maybe even 21 to live on their own. They may have a physical disability. They may have a serious mental health condition. They may have a medical condition that requires support. But most of our young people, the young people I work with, that I'm privileged to work with, they don't need me and my agency sitting on top of them. What they need is the opportunity to learn how to live independently and to call on me when they need help, right? You know, when you put young people in supportive housing, you also graduate them from one system to another, and in some ways they become clients for life because they're still in a system, right? When they come to a supportive apartment, the agency gets paid for their services. They're still in a system. And despite all my intent, supportive regulations require that I have social workers checking in on them and all these things happening. Now, again, there are some young people that need that, but the vast majority need to be independent of the system, and they need us without a requirement for us getting paid. They need us to be the prudent parent in their life, to call on, to be there when, just like to this day, I call on my mom sometimes when I need advice. There's nothing wrong with that. Our young people need that. So we need to realign our funding and get more of our funds into housing where young people can live in some of the beautiful buildings that you and I passed and live safe.
According to the daily DHS count, over 32,000 children sleep in shelters every single night. So, to hear this number obviously creates a sense of urgency, but it can also be like a little bit discouraging. And so how do we fight this feeling of, in your words, despondency?
Well, we need to fight it because our families, our communities, and our young people depend on us, right? Look, what we bring to this work is not just our expertise and our education, right? That's not good enough. What we bring to this work is enthusiasm, high energy, and optimism. Enthusiasm, high energy, and optimism goes a long way in giving our young people hope. And we need to stay in the fight. So I don't want my young people, the ones I just met this morning, to ever think that they're alone. Because my parents never let me think I was alone. Even when I was stubborn and I thought I knew it all, they still had my back. And that's how you prevent despondency. It's not a service strategy. The prevention of despondency is to bring optimism, energy, and enthusiasm into the lives of those who we are so privileged to serve. You can change the 32,000 kids in shelters overnight. But if we can continue to build beautiful buildings in desirable neighborhoods, our young people begin to see that there's change happening, they will step in front of us and lead that change. They almost always do, because they know what it means to live the way they have been forced to live. And they want to believe that change can happen. And our job is to bring that enthusiasm, that energy, and that optimism. And then once they take leadership, we can step behind them and do what our parents did for you and me. No easy answers. But if we break away from the shelter strategy, the next couple generations may not end up with 32 to 50,000 children in a shelter situation. It deserves to be mentioned again that so many of our young people, not just the ones in the shelters, are locked into a system of low expectations. And we need to change that. They're not asking for more services. What they're asking for is respect, justice, and opportunity.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, starts literally quite that simple. Yeah. So breaking the cycle of, poverty can be complex and challenging. So I'm also wondering, like, from your experience, what are some of the most effective strategies for, creating lasting change for children and families in need?
Housing. We all do better when we live in safety and our children go to good, decent schools, right? We also all do better when we live together. The United States continues to struggle with the legacy of separation and segregation. And I know my own children, have a better life than I do. I want their children to have a much better life than I gave my own kids. So we want to maintain that energy around that second and third generation outcome. So housing is important, and because when you're unhoused, everything is worse. School is more difficult, family is more difficult, relationships are more difficult, celebrations are more difficult, maintaining cultural contact is more difficult. To be unhoused, to be housed in shelters makes life more difficult. Two, education is a game changer. We have many schools that are burdened. And I know it's politically challenging to talk about this, but we have too many kids attending schools where they are not inspired and held to high expectations. And we've got to find a way to change that. This idea that, we just think it's okay that so many of our young people are not in school, that they're absent. You've read the reports, I'm sure, that they're on the street. Well, why would they not be in trouble if they're not in school? I would have been had I not gone to school. So housing, education, and 3, family. Someone that loves you and loves you unconditionally. The research on recidivism is very clear. It doesn't matter what you might be at risk for. When you have people in your life, the chances are that you recidivate less. So people, housing, education, people, those are game changers. They were in my own life. We waste a lot of money doing stupid things without giving people the basics that they need. People need housing. Young people need predictable education that keeps them engaged, not just, come to school if you want to, but no, I look back at my life, both my early education and my college education, all the way through my graduate studies. I went back because I had fellowship with other students, and I almost always had a teacher that inspired me, that got me excited. We've got to give up young people, educators that inspire them and get them excited. I'm not blaming anyone. I'm just saying, if we have young people not coming to school, if we have young people that can't seem to get a community and be part of a community in school, then we need to ask ourselves why they're being left behind and figure out a strategy to bring them back in. Because if we leave them behind, they will end up in all the wrong places.
How do you think that we, as everyday people like myself and other people within, communities can fill in the gaps or help our, neighbors and community members that are suffering and struggling?
That's a really good question and a really tough question, right? So I think first is do everything you can. If you're a mentor, be a dependable mentor. If you don't have time to be a mentor, find something that you can do. But also, lift your voice. We should not continue to build shelters and not invest in housing. We should not be happy with shelters, right? We need shelters, but we should not be happy with shelters. And certainly we don't want as many people living in shelters as they do. We don't want kids living in shelters as they do. So lift your voice. Also, I know it's easy to talk about more money, but let's be real. There's a lot of money being spent. It's not always spent in the right places. And we need to stop simply asking for more money and begin to talk about where should we be spending that money? Just like we did in our own families, right? Growing up, and how we manage money matters. If you leave a child in a residential institution for a year, that's a couple $100,000. That's an expensive option. With that kind of money, we can make that entire family a landowner, not in New York City, but somewhere else, right? So we need to begin to ask those questions and stop simply demanding that this is a spend problem. This is not so much a spend problem as where we spend the money and how we spend the money.
Do you have any final thoughts or words for our audience?
Look, stay in the fight. If you care about our democracy, if you care about our future, if you care about this incredible experiment that we call the United States, where all of us with incredibly different backgrounds come together to create something better, where the optimism for second generation success is still pretty high, right? Which is why we have millions of people that would rather be here today than anywhere else, because they believe that if you can just get to the United States, you can remake your life. Now, we may argue whether that's true or not anymore, but that's what people believe. And that is the magic and the paradox of the United States. So let's stay in the fight. Let's do this right. We have the money, we have the intellect, we have the passion. We can do this.
It's a beautiful way to end it off. Thank you, Dr. Kohomban, for joining us today and sharing all of that information. It was very valuable. So thank you so much.
It was great. It was a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you again for listening to The Bells I Hear. Subscribe to our podcast and follow Mentor Promise on social media for more. Special thanks to Alice Obar and Emma Morris, our video editors, and Venerable Mello, our producer. Song credits to Alegua by Diego Urcola.